So I've got leader after leader after leader that I showed them this business. They got it. They jumped in first thing and they went out and they produced literally tens of millions of dollars worth of volume over the years. And that happens. That really does happen. But I have someone else who looked at it and thought about it and looked at it and thought about it and then flew to a airport where I flew in with my sponsor, and we met in the Delta Sky Club and talked about it. And then they actually went on a cruise that my company had. It was like an incentive cruise, and they went on the cruise to meet the people and see what they were like. And then they joined the business and also produced millions of dollars in volume. Down the road, it went down and went on and went on and went on. So what's the moral of that story is everybody comes in at their own pace. And why I want to do this chapter is I want to just focus more on this escalation progression, which we talked about in the last chapter. Because this is the element that brings your prospect through the decision-making process. So I wanted to make sure that this is really clear for you. And again, we're going to cover why this works and why you need to do it. So we talked about repetition. In this case of the leader I was just using the example of, it was the power of repetition. There really wasn't, there is new material, new information that comes out sometimes as you get later in the progression, but a lot of times there's not. Sometimes it's this, basically second time or third time, they've seen all the information they're going to get. And I know every prospect's different, right? You've had people and they're like, well, I need to know what are all the ingredients and all the products and where do they come from and are they all certified organic and were there any animals harmed in the making of these products? And I don't wear shoes because I'm vegan and, right? Everybody's got their criteria. But a lot of times, second, third time in, it's just simply a case of they've seen all the information that they're going to get, and they're going to need to see it another time, or another 2 times, or another 3 times. So here's your key. You don't stop escalating the progression until the prospect takes themselves out of the equation. And the only way they take themselves out of the equation is they say, okay, I don't want to do the business, but I'd like to buy the product or service. Or they say, all right, I'm in, sign me up. Let's get going, let's make some money, let's have fun. Or third, they say, you know what, I've decided this is not for me. Thank you anyway, but I'm not interested. You need to keep escalating the progression until you get to one of those 3 scenarios. So if they're in limbo, don't stop the progression. You've got to escalate it one level bigger. Other thing, keep it step by step. Go back to the components of the system. Every step we escalate them, there should be a corresponding tool that goes to it. And then what goes with that action step. And then at every part of the step, each time you go up a step, we're looking for one of those 3 things. Hey, I'd like to be a customer. Hey, I'm ready to do the business. Thanks, I've decided this is not for me. A yes is great, a no is great. The only thing we can't live with is a maybe, because a maybe, there's nowhere to go with a maybe. So where we go with a maybe is we escalate it and we progress one more step up. So we have a step, we have an action, and we have a tool. And then again, I want to emphasize the real power of the progression is the social proof. So I want you to work hard at putting that into place as you bring people up the progression. And let me give you some tangible, examples of how you do this. One of the things, let's say you're bringing someone to an opportunity meeting. One of the first things you should do is always introduce them to your sponsor. Because your sponsor is your partner, they're going to be able to help you afterward, answer questions. You want them to already know your prospect. You want your prospect to already know them, so at least they have the start of a relationship with them. You want to introduce them to the speaker who's at the front of the room doing the presentation later. Now, as opposed to sitting in a hotel room with their legs crossed and their arms crossed, wondering this person in the front who's trying to sell them something, which is the mindset many prospects will come into that situation. They've already met them. They shook their hand. They smiled at them. They looked in their eyes. Now they've got a new friend. Now they're looking at that presentation from the front of the room projected to them in a whole different way. They're listening to somebody that they know. There is some social proof in that because they've actually made some kind of a connection. Other thing, little thing, but it's important. If my prospect is a restaurant worker, I'm going to introduce him or her to somebody else in the room who's a restaurant worker. And you know what they say? They say, wow, this must be a good business for restaurant workers. If they're a blackjack dealer at the casino, I want to introduce them to someone else who is a blackjack dealer or used to be a blackjack dealer at a casino. If they're a long-haul truck driver, I want them to meet a long-haul truck driver. If they're Lithuanian, and I've got somebody on the team somewhere who's Lithuanian descent, I want them to meet them. If they're Asian, I want them to meet Asian. If they're Catholic, I want to introduce them to someone else I'm looking for commonalities. Because of the social proof element, you want to be mindful of this. And it's really fascinating how this works, but it really does come into effect. It's this thing where people just say, well, if let's say they're in a beauty salon, you introduce them to someone else who's in a beauty salon. There's a subliminal decision like, well, this must be a good business for people who are in beauty salon. If they're a corporate professional and you introduce them, they say, wow, this is interesting. Other corporate professionals are doing this. Wow, other mortgage brokers are doing this. Wow, other CEOs are doing this. We're now at this stage in the business where we have all fibers of society in it. When I started 25 years ago, it was a blue-collar business. It was people like me who were high school dropouts, dishwashers, waiters, waitresses, cooks. That's not the case anymore. We have so many high-level executives, high-level world-class athletes, CEOs, VPs, who understand the power of residual income. And of course, whether it's My Risky is the New Safe book, Kiyosaki's books, Trump's books, David Bach books, there's so many mainstream bestsellers who are about creating wealth, which have talked about the benefits of our business and residual income. Those are another example of how to use social proof. Any kind of third-party thing, whether it's an article in Forbes or you see something in USA Today, anything that's a third-party element that's talking about the benefits of your product, your service, your company, or our profession, that's social proof, and social proof is very effective at getting the message through. Let's jump to the test.